Pioneering identity company Entrust has a new CEO. But for a while, it also has its old one. I'm Joel McConvey. Today on the Biometric Update Podcast, we speak with Tony Ball and Todd Wilkinson, respectively the incoming and outgoing leaders of the company, to discuss what prompted the change and what's ahead for Entrust. We are on the line with Todd Wilkinson and Tony Ball. It's great to speak with both of you today. Congratulations, I suppose. A cordial transition like this is somewhat rare. Can you tell us what spurred the change and how the transition is being managed here?
And thank you. Thanks for having us on your podcast today. I have been with Entrust for 20 years. 17 of those years, I've been the CEO of the company. So after 17 years, we've really done a lot in terms of positioning the company for success, building toward future opportunities. And frankly, we crossed $1 billion over the last year, which was a major milestone for us as a company. After 17 years, I love the business. I love the customers, the use cases. I love the colleagues and the team that I built here. But 17 years as CEO, as you know, is a long tenure. It was the right time to have a new leader continue our growth and advance our strategies. So that was, in terms of handling it, we're a privately owned company, directly engaged with our board of directors on succession planning on a continuous loop, but really escalating over the last 5 years, which really was focused on ensuring that we had the right talent and skills in the next CEO to take us forward to face the next challenges and focus areas that we have as a business. And we have an 8-month overlap. We announced this past week the change externally, which is an 8-month overlap. And I'm told that's actually pretty long for CEO succession in terms of public announcements. But we did that with some purpose to ensure the transition's smooth, that Tony has all the learnings I could possibly help to provide to make him successful, ensure we have lots of time to communicate with customers, and it's business as usual from an Entrust perspective. So this is we're stable, successful company, and we're planful in terms of things like this. And I think hopefully this is evidence of that.
Oh, wonderful. So company may be stable, the sector is less so. There are so many moving pieces in the identity sector right now. Tell me, maybe Tony, you can speak to what the near future looks like for Entrust in terms of a market strategy, and any difference you anticipate in terms of direction from where the company has been, or if it's going to just sort of be a hand off the baton and keep going on that straight line.
Well, it's certainly going to be more of handing off the baton. Congratulations to Todd on his retirement, and I've been afforded the opportunity to work under Todd for almost 9 years of my tenure. So what more could you wish for in terms of a smooth transition and be able to leverage Todd's knowledge and experience to be able to move to the next phase? So excited by that, to say the least. In terms of what we see happening in the world of identity, it's actually an exciting space right now, really transforming in terms of what we're seeing both in terms of user behavior, the use cases, what we're seeing in terms of how AI is disrupting and transforming the space as well. And I think the biggest shift, I would say, that we're likely to encounter, and what we're really thinking about how we get ahead of that, is from things happening in point situations where you might be onboarding somebody or might be verifying them in a single instance, is thinking more about the identity lifecycle. And how do we capitalize on consumer concerns? How do we capitalize on citizen concerns and also our customers' concerns about saying, how do we make sure we attract customers at hello, but also hold them throughout their journey? And that's really where we're investing more in trying to get ahead of that.
So Entrust offers sort of a broad array of use cases for your identity product, from payments to digital credentials. I always see travel as a kind of prime mover for digital ID because it genuinely, I think, makes a painful experience less painful for a number of people, and enough people that people go, okay, yeah, this is something that I want to adopt and work with. What has Entrust observed as far as sort of the most promising sectors and use cases for identity-based services?
As we think about citizen services and we think about the comfort people are deriving now with asserting themselves using a biometric attribute, right? You turn up to a gate to board a plane, you're doing that biometrically. You're doing most of your travel from the comfort of your own home, whether that's reapplying for a passport to travel or uploading a passport to assert who you are at the time that you need to assert it so you can begin your travel journey. It starts in your home. So where Entrust participates is very much in enabling citizens to do precisely that, do it with a posture of trust, comfort, convenience, that they can go about their business. It may interest you to know that we're the largest provider for citizen identity travel programs throughout the world, with a single provider to the UK Home Office and 27 EU and the US that actually participate in that program.
Entrust was founded in 1969, back when the Archies' Sugar Sugar was the #1 song on the airwaves, and identity verification meant saying hi to your boss on the way into work. For all of its 50-plus years, the company has worked with government and the financial industry. But Tony Ball says developments in fintech have changed the game, notably in terms of an increased need for onboarding services.
We've been in the financial industry and the government domain since inception, but in the financial arena, you're seeing a ton of fintech disruptors now coming in and challenging the established financial framework. And those fintech disruptors are really coming in and they're on a tear for new customer acquisition. So being able to biometrically onboard customers, to use your facial image capture along with some type of document verification to be able to assert yourself to open an account and to essentially start your financial journey, right? And that's new customers in terms of the demographic, but it's also new customers who are looking for a different banking experience. So that's very much top of mind. And that's also highly applicable to our traditional financial institutions as well. So they're watching this very intently, thinking about how that's actually going to transform their own business models. But it's also opening up other adjacent things as well. You'd be interested to think about delivery drivers, delivery apps, just asserting that verification to be able to deliver something. That's top of mind, particularly when you're jumping into an app-based vehicle, right? To be able, your Ubers of this world, for example. So these are use cases that are emerging, and perhaps one of the most interesting that's getting on the agenda is gaming, for example, just asserting your identity in, and that's a whole different world of asserting who you are when you go on and do online gaming. So back to our early comment, really vibrant and interesting space, and something that we can participate in.
All of these things that you speak of, everything to do with digital identity is relatively new still. So Todd, maybe you can speak a bit about, as a company that has been around for as long as Entrust, what's it been like to watch the arc of change in terms of how we approach even concepts like identity and identity verification?
Well, so if you go all the way back to our origin story, 1969, we actually started by creating technology to provide issuance of financial cards at scale. So it was still a physical credential. As the life cycle of physical credentials has gone forward, there's a lot of digital content embedded in those credentials. That for us kind of merged into more of the citizen identity side as opposed to just consumer. And that was kind of our expansion story, if you go back through the history of it, which then turned digital and has been, frankly, for more than probably 15 years we've been focusing on digital expansion. But we're now getting to a point where we live in a very hybrid environment today. We have a lot of physical credentialing capabilities within our company, which are still widely used and still create a lot of revenue for us as a company. Digital has become the big growth engine and big growth driver for us as a company. But I think the fact that we span both and we have depth of understanding how people use identities and how we bring our identity solutions together is really an asset that you don't see in many of the new startups because we just have a lot of history in the space that cuts across consumer, citizen, and employee use cases. And I think Tony gave some really good use case examples, but there's so many more in terms of where digital identity is emerging and how it is living with physical or at times just going on its own. Tony, anything you want to add there?
Well, just to amplify your point about why would an organization look at something like Entrust, and it's the deep knowledge of being able to help them go through the transformative elements of incorporating a digital experience. Many look at it initially as a complement, and in some cases they're now making the pivot towards a digital-first mindset. But it takes time, and when you consider the infrastructure concerns, when you consider the risk posture, particularly banks and governments will take, you need somebody who can really handhold them through that. So when you combine these assets, and Todd talks about it in the hybrid context, which is so relevant for our target customers today, so who can we trust to help them through that at a pace that we're comfortable going?
It's fascinating. You don't get that many companies in this space that have that kind of history. You're talking Summer of Love there. That's a storied history.
I wasn't here then, by the way, so I can't take credit for that. Fair. I mean, at the end of the day, everything we do is identity centric and has security at its core. So that's kind of the core mission for us across $1 billion of revenue and a lot of use cases.
Mm-hmm. So we're based in Canada, Biometric Update, and I wanted to ask about the announcement in February of a partnership with Phase 4 Systems to work with the Government of Canada on a travel solution that uses verifiable credentials and facial recognition. So can you tell me a bit more about that project?
Yeah, so Phase 4 has actually been a partner of Entrust for quite some time. We've been involved in a couple of projects, but this specific one is mobile app-based. It's the issuance of a digital identity, which is compliant to kind of a W3C standard. It's a verifiable ID. And what it allows you to do is to use that application to assert your identity with your passport. So it does an NFC chip read to verify that you are who you say you are at the point that you're asserting that. And then because you've gone through that verification process and using a combination of Phase 4 tech and Entrust technology with the presentation layer, you're able to then move forward and continue to use your face throughout the journey. So you've established that trust, which enables you to then go about it in a more convenient fashion. So this is something that we've worked with the Canadian government on for many years, and they've been very much innovators in this space. And we've seen these have transformative impacts in the rest of the world. May interest you to know that one of the original projects was a precursor to some of the things that we're now doing in the UK Home Office. So, yeah, important partnership and really good use case.
Yeah, there's that sort of ideal travel scenario too, right, where you're just walking through the airport without pausing because your biometrics are taking care of everything for you.
Right. You're walking through and do you want to be trying to take a passport back out while you're trying to go through border control? You've got multiple pieces of luggage, you're dealing with family members. That is something that is really appealing to travelers, particularly when you think about the travel continuum right now, the number of people getting back, how full planes are, right? How difficult it is to navigate some of these things. Anything to take the edge off, anything to make it easier for citizens to go about their business.
Yeah, I would take it alone simply to eliminate that feeling of walking through the airport and touching my pocket and going, oh, do I have my passport? Do I have my passport? Because it's unnecessary panic, right? But I guarantee it happens to lots of people.
Or like my wife does before we leave, do I have my passport? You got to check the bag, you go back in the house, you got to make sure it's there. So there's a lot of friction.
Precisely. Let's talk about the other side of the coin, which is that we have all these opportunities, but they also open up avenues for fraud, and there's a new urgency in terms of the need to prevent it. So again, with your history, can you speak a bit about how the fraud threat has changed and how the response has changed?
Yeah, Todd's been swimming in this as well, but a couple of things that are kind of mind-blowing right now is 69% of organizations are reporting an increase in fraud impacting their organization. The average impact to an org right now is about $13 million a year. And here's an even scarier thing. About every 5 minutes, a deep fake identity is being formed. And once they're being formed, particularly when you think about synthetic ID, once it's in the system, it's almost impossible to eradicate and can actually be called on at a later date with some of the advancements that we're seeing in AI and some of the tools that can be utilized to take advantage of that. So fraud is impacting the financial industry. It's impacting, obviously, governments who are thinking about borders and, of course, in the workforce. Many of us have gone through the last 5 or 6 years through the pandemic, having positioned ourselves remotely. People have taken those choices of residence, and we're now starting to navigate how do we bring people back to the office, if indeed we fully bring people back to the office, right? What's that balance? But asserting yourself remotely and making sure that you know the employee, you know what access you're giving them to critical assets. And with the emergence of deep fakes and artificial intelligence, that's opened up attack vectors to those who would go about things in a nefarious way to take advantage of that. So that's what I'm seeing. Todd?
The only thing I was going to add, Tony, is that we see biometrics as a central technology to combating fraud today. The benefit we have as a company is that we could bring that together in a layered approach with a lot of other core fraud prevention technologies, and think about biometrics as a core component part of that, but frankly within a much broader layered approach that includes physical documents, encryption technologies, we have a whole suite of fraud technologies within our platform today that we bring together. So biometrics are a major driver of making this engine work as well as it does. But we do believe biometrics need a layered approach as well, especially given what we're seeing in terms of the advancements of the fraud technologies. It's a race, no question.
Yeah. And the common opinion seems to be that there's no silver bullet, right? Like it's all about layered protection. You really have to rely on a number of different tiers and directions for your safeguards.
To build on Todd's comment, as you think about the identity being formed, you think about the life cycle attributes, right? You're not just considering how you assert it is somebody at that time, and the attack vectors are increasing, and also the tools that the bad actors have available to them are advancing at the same rate, right? To Todd's point, it's an arms race, and we're in it. But where we think we can start plotting a path that gives our target audience more comfort is how we incorporate third-party signals into this, how we think about that layered security level. And it's not just in terms of your face at the time you're forming your identity, but it's actually using the biometric to re-verify your identity. So call on that attribute as often as you can when you're placing yourself at risk. And that's part of the layered security model, whether it's some type of step up. If I'm in a bank application and I want to attach my direct deposit account, or if I want to begin a home loan, do a biometric re-verification, utilize some additional signals like signing that we can incorporate, or contextual, your location. These are things that help consumers derive greater confidence that we're staying ahead of some of those attack vectors.
Right. And it's risk-based, or can be, right? Whereas, as the risk increases, it's like the science fiction movie where the deeper into the fortress you go, you have to scan your irises, you have to put your palm up. There's more layers of security. The more secure things are. Makes sense.
And I'm glad you mentioned the risk context, because when you consider risk and you consider it both sides of the pond, there's a different mindset associated with the tolerance that you have for risk, right? So in Europe, for example, onboarding with a biometric and a doc-based onboarding experience is considered table stakes. That's almost the beginning of your journey. You go to the United States, okay, and it seemed to be a secondary step in your journey, because the reliance on your ability to offer a social security number, your home address, some of the more convenient things that have been normally associated with that, even down to kind of OTP. So changing the conversation and educating those users that they might want to invite a bit more friction into the way that they go about their business is the next phase.
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating to see how regional differences shape the discussion and shape the way things the structure ends up solidifying. One thing that is everywhere, I'm sure you've noticed, is AI. This notion that we need AI to fight AI. AI is the threat. AI is lots of different things. Certainly right now it's very buzzy. So in terms of large language models and other generative tech, which is sort of the stuff that a lot of people are talking about when they talk about this stuff, where are we going? Where is this all going to end up?
So, predicting the end game, nigh impossible. I can tell you I have an AI DJ now. Spotify introduced me to that. Mm-hmm. So AI is everywhere, right? It's not bad. But the point of that you're making rightfully is, as you consider the large language models and you consider the generative AI and the advancements that are being made, it brings about opportunities to get ahead of those things, but also brings about more concerns about how you manage data, how you ensure that you're thinking about utilizing it in a way that is comfortable for your target audience as well. And you've got all the challenges of as large language models grow, right? You've got ethical concerns, you've got ecological concerns. You've got so many things because you think about the computing power that's required for this, and you think about the investments you need to make to stay ahead of it. Are we going to see us as individuals have virtual assistants at some point because of AI later? Probably, right? At some point, because the convenience with which data can be processed and made available to you. But the concern, obviously, is that you're going to have AI providing recommendations and almost acting on your behalf, right? And at what point, right, a couple of years ago, we were saying all bots are bad, right? If you're seeing a bot, don't keep bots out, right? Now we're saying, well, what's the difference between a good bot and a bad bot? Okay, how do you verify that this is somebody who's acting on your behalf with your support? Okay, so again, it comes back to what Todd said earlier. There is always going to be a layered approach. There is always going to be something that you have to think about. How do you put the check and balances in the trajectory that you pick, right? And there are multiple paths that we can go down, but think of us in the context of being an identity-centric organization that thinks very carefully and meaningfully about your comfort level in asserting your identity and getting it from a place of trust and knowing that we're thinking about these things, we're investing in these areas in a very precise way to think about how we make the world a safer place rather than one that you're more concerned about operating in.
And again, the history comes into play there because it's, you're clearly not a firm that has come into existence in the last 5 years to jump on this. It's part of a holistic arc in terms of where you're going and how you provide security over time.
Another area that I would say is important for organizations to really spend time on, and this is something it's ingrained in the way we think, is the regulatory, the compliance, and the policy framework that is only going to get more challenging to understand and navigate. And when you've been doing this for as long as Entrust has, you really understand how that muscle helps us so much in the advancements that are being made. And in the race to try to fulfill our ambition for growth, you've always got to have the check and balances. Are we making sure that we are aligned with regulatory compliance, policy, ensuring that we're doing this in the right way? And that's something.
And Tony, some of the use cases that we serve, obviously, some of our biggest customers are governments, large financial institutions. These are the types of entities where security is important, and specifically regulatory compliance is really important. So we've been successful serving those customers over our entire duration of our company, in part because we take that really, really seriously. In biometrics, we are seeing the regulatory environment, country by country, changing daily, putting up a lot of roadblocks to innovation, but also trying to keep citizens secure as they do that. And trying to kind of navigate through all that is something that, we spend a tremendous amount of time, energy, and frankly, investment in to make sure that we can provide that within our products to give our customers comfort that if they use our products, that they remain compliant and that they can actually focus on growing their businesses and doing the things that they're good at by using our core tech and our core products, and the acknowledgement that we've done that work for them. So it's a challenge because it's changing so fast, but we lean into that challenge because we think it's a core value that we provide to our customers.
So just last week, we saw the Online Safety Act in the UK kind of kick into a higher gear. Has that sort of had an impact on Entrust in terms of what you're talking about with that regulatory agility and having to adjust to these constantly changing and evolving regulations?
Yeah, it has, but it's something that we'd anticipated. Think of it also in terms of age verification, right? And as you're coming further down and you're keeping citizens and consumers safe, is thinking about how you advance your training of your models and ensuring that you're staying ahead of the way that society is evolving and the responsibility that comes with giving people the comfort and the protection to go about their business. And that's part of what we've been doing in terms of setting up our fraud engines, in terms of anticipating where that's coming from, looking at the demographic profile and how do we make sure that citizens and consumers and employees can go about their business safely. So we see that muscle that we've created as being very helpful as this legislation comes about. We certainly see these regulatory positions as friendly to the way that we can grow our business, right? Obviously, there's always a balance to be struck, but this is a muscle that Entrust has and one that we lean into quite strongly.
So just before we wrap up, any final thoughts on what people should know about, what's going to happen with Entrust in the next year, let's say?
I'll let Tony have the last word on that, but I'll just throw in one. Great to speak to you. Thank you for letting you have both Tony and I on the podcast and share our point of view. It was nice to have 2-on-1. And I'm really excited as we make this transition in leadership. Tony's been living and breathing this specific space around our core tech and identity, specifically the biometric offering with our IDV capability, which has been part of his responsibility now for the last several years. So I'm really excited about his leadership as we take it forward. He's going to be really, really well positioned to continue our leadership and continue to build out our platform capabilities, serve global customers. I'll hand it back to you, Tony, but he's the right guy for the job is kind of my message to your audience. I'm excited about what we're going to do next.
So I would also like to echo Todd's sentiment. Thank you for the opportunity to spend time with you. We know you have a choice, and to spend it with us is greatly appreciated. As Todd said, I couldn't be better positioned to be able to take this over. And Todd's trained me well. That's probably the best way I could describe it. And it builds character as you're going through and developing under Todd, and I'm grateful for that. In the next phase of Entrust's growth story, just really want to continue the positioning we have in the identity arena. Identity matters. It's something that we're passionate about. It's something that we believe as Entrust we're going to fulfill in our ambitions. And we think we have the talent, we have the culture, we have the tool sets to be able to help the world become a safer and more convenient place by leveraging Entrust. So that's the legacy Todd leads, and at the same time, that's the opportunity it affords me is to take it further. So excited by the prospect, but thank you.
Well, thank you both for joining us today. It's been great to have the both of you. Like I said, it's lovely to see a transition that's sort of being, it's a handoff. It's the continuation of a long story with a sort of fresh and exciting new era. My last question, Todd, is for you. What you got plans for retirement? You going to sail off into the sunset?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. I'm so excited about where the company goes next. I've got 3 boys. One of them is a professional runner. He's participating in the U.S. Track and Field Championship this weekend as a professional runner. I think I'm going to spend some time chasing him around the country and around the world, watching him run in circles. And then I have some other hobbies as well. So I'm going to stay close to this space just because intellectually it's such one of the beautiful parts of what we do is this is just a really, really interesting space to play in from a technology use case. So I'm going to stay close to it. And look, I'm always a short phone call away if Tony needs any help. But I'll thank you for that question.
The story continues. Thanks again to Tony Ball and Todd Wilkinson of Entrust for joining us today. And thanks to you for listening. To learn more about Entrust's citizen services, visit entrust.com. And for more on the changing world of identity, visit www.biometricupdate.com.